الكلمة الآن للمناضل مايكل أوبرسكالسكي، هو رئيس اللجنة التحضيرية الدولية لمنتدى بيروت الاجتماع العربي الدولي الأول، وهو مفكر وكاتب ومناضل قديم في مجال التصدي للغطرسة والإرهاب والإجرام الأمريكي، وله الكثير من المقالات والمؤلفات والكثير من المحطات النضالية. مايكل سيتكلم باللغة الإنجليزية لأنه لا يوجد العربية بشكل جيد.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, please allow me, before I start, to pay tribute to the Shaheed of the Lebanese, the Palestinian and the Iraqi resistance, and all Shaheed all over the world who are part of the struggle against imperialism and Zionism. They are with us now. They give us strength and they guide us. So, at the very beginning, I would like to tell you a little bit about myself, so that you know, or at least you have an idea who is talking to you. I am not a neutral journalist. I was never a neutral journalist, and I will never be a neutral journalist. During my whole life, I was on the side of the struggling people. If it was in Nicaragua, if it was in Palestine, if it was in Africa, wherever. And my task was to disclose the dirty tricks, the mechanisms of destabilization, of aggression, of covert activities of intelligence services by imperialism and Zionism against the peoples. This is my background, my principal background for years now. And because of this stand, the South African military intelligence, in cooperation with the CIA, tried 2 times to assassinate me because I was working on the side of the South African Liberation Movement, African National Congress, led by Nelson Mandela. These are just a few highlights why I'm saying I'm not neutral, I was not neutral, and I will never be neutral. I will always be on the side of my struggling brothers and sisters, wherever they are. And therefore, I'm proud and honored. I'm proud and honored to be here in Lebanon, to feel and to support the Lebanese people in their struggle against imperialism and Zionism, and to support the Lebanese resistance as much as I can do. This is one reason why we are preparing this conference, for this international conference for July. This conference shall be different from so many other conferences because of different aspects. Aspect number 1 is you will see people coming here to Lebanon, coming from different continents, coming from different scenarios, using different methods of resistance, but sharing one and the same vision. And this vision is getting rid of imperialism and Zionism, get rid of those monsters. And because they will come from so many strata and continents and experiences, this will be an opportunity to exchange views, to enrich the common vision, to enrich the common struggle in order to be more victorious. The second point is we do not want to have a conference where people just talk. Talking and exchanging views is very important. I'm not against that. But the emphasis of this conference will be a working conference. So when the conference is over, the real work will start. Therefore, the conference will be structured in the form of working sessions, tackling items like the role of media and culture. Because one method of imperialism, apart from occupying countries, apart from military terror, apart from CIA operation, is destroying the cultures of the people. Exporting so-called democracy, I call it Guantanamo democracy. I call it McDonald's democracy, and McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken culture. But all the peoples have different culture, and they have the right to defend their own culture against those imperialist and Zionist mechanisms of destroying their national culture. And therefore, this will be definitely one issue, analyzing the role of the media and the disinformation campaigns organized by the media, and the role of culture. And of course, not only analyzing, but setting up alternative structures, alternative media, organizing the cultural exchange, building bridges among the peoples of various countries, of various continents. Strengthening, therefore, our worldwide movement that has the same vision of liberation, of peace and solidarity and freedom. Another working session will definitely be the analysis of the real terror. Because Mr. Bush, Mr. Blair, Mrs. Merkel, and whoever, they are talking about the international campaign against terrorism, which they say is very much necessary to save our so-called civilization. But who are the real terrorists? They are them. It is Mr. Bush and Mr. Blair. But this working session will be aimed at exposing the real terrorist activities. It will expose, for example, the background of the so-called 11th of September in New York and Washington, which was the triggering point of the international campaign against so-called terrorism. But more and more facts are coming to the public light that they organized the whole thing themselves in order to have a pretext to terrorize the people all over the world, from Afghanistan to Libanon to Iraq to Iran. Of course, it will be very important also to analyze special activities, special operations against people that are really terroristic. The biggest and most important terroristic organization in the whole world is the CIA and the Israeli Mossad. It will be exposed during this working session. Researchers will come, exchange of information will come. This working session will be to set up mechanisms to inform the people all over about those kind of activities. So what I'm doing, for example, myself now with magazines and publications I have. There's one book I published some time ago that was even translated into Arabic. And the magazine I'm publishing and editing. And the latest magazine, for example, here, GEHEIM, it's exposing the dirty war plans against Iran that are going on now. Another working session would be, for example, a working session of exchanging the experiences, variety of experiences of the different forms of resistance worldwide. And we will all see, despite of the fact that the big monsters thinking they are still ruling the world, there is a ray of hope, because there's all over the world growing resistance. There's resistance in Venezuela, led by the President Hugo Chavez. to such an extent that Venezuela took the initiative to leave those imperialist institutions, World Bank and International Monetary Fund, asking others to follow. There's resistance on the Philippines against a brutal dictatorial American puppet regime. There is, of course, resistance in Cuba for decades now against the monster only a few kilometers far from Havana, trying to destabilize Cuba on all levels. There is a resistance even in Europe, even in Germany, while we are sitting here. These are the latest news I can give you. People are organizing demonstrations, very active demonstrations against the G8 meeting that will take place in a few weeks in Germany. And what is the reaction of the German government that is calling themselves very democratic? What is their reaction? They are building prisons. They are building prisons for those people who demonstrate. Police is already raiding houses of activists. Activists are already arrested and harassed. This is the way of democracy they talk about, and they would like to export here to your country and other countries in the region. So there is resistance even in those countries. There is resistance in Africa, resistance under very difficult circumstances of poverty and starvation, but people still resist. And of course, there's a highly appreciated and strong resistance here in Lebanon and in Palestine and in Iraq. So there will be definitely workshops where these forms of resistance will be discussed, exchange of views, but not only exchange of views, forms, elaborating forms and methods of cooperation for the future after the conference. So setting up mechanisms. I just wanted to give you a few examples to make you understand that the character of this conference will be different from other conferences. It will be a working conference. A working conference. And so far, because of this different character, we have already approached people in all the other continents, especially with this message about the conference, the background of the conference, the strategic aims of this conference, and we got very good feedback in form of email and phones and others, and actually a lot of people are waiting now for the outcome of this meeting here, which I had honored to be present. So the ball is rolling, and hopefully it will be a very strong ball, and after the conference it will get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And let the big monsters be very, very nervous about this ball, because, of course, we know this ball is aimed to overroll them, finally. And I think it is very important to have this conference, very important to have this conference here in Lebanon, in this region of the Middle East. Why I am saying so? I said there are struggles in all other parts of the world. But this country here, Lebanon, and the whole region is like a hot spot where you can see all forms, all dirty methods of imperialist and Zionist destabilization and aggression, coming from disinformation, where they are portraying the people of this region, where they are portraying Islam as being backward, as being reactionary, as being medieval and whatever, in order to justify their wars of aggression. It's like the old crusaders who came here to the coast of Lebanon saying, we are going to bring civilization to the Middle East. But what kind of civilization did they bring? They destroyed hospitals, they destroyed schools, they destroyed mosques, they were killing civilians. This was the civilization they wanted to export here. And this is exactly the same what the new crusaders are doing now. So, disinformation, covert activities, dirty tricks I call them, run by the CIA, Mossad, and other intelligence services, Western intelligence services, against the people of this region, against the resistance organizations of this region, in order to crush them, up to direct military intervention, which you had, unfortunately, to suffer here by the Zionist aggressive regime. Not long time ago, but fortunately and proudly, you were victorious, and this was also a very good victory for us in Europe. So I thank you at this time. Shukran. And recent events here in Lebanon have shown that even though the Lebanese resistance was victorious, the imperialists and Zionists have not given up. They continue trying to destabilize Lebanon with the final goal to crush the Lebanese resistance. The recent events in the north of your country are a proof of that. And the whole scenario that is developing there reminds me very much of a situation just only a few weeks ago in Iran, where out of a shadow an organization appeared called Jandullah, attacking the Pastaran, a bus of Pastaran in Iran, killing a few, using the same language that Fatah Islam is using, giving them the same picture. And the first thing that was discovered is that this group, Jandullah, had the most high sophisticated American weaponry and communication. And later on, through some research that was done by me and some other friends and colleagues, we discovered that this group was trained and equipped in Pakistan by the Pakistani military intelligence, ISI. And the whole world knows ISI is in the complete pocket of American CIA. What does it mean? The CIA is using these groups under the cover of their language to destabilize Iran, destabilize other countries, and, for example, trying to pull the trigger for a civil war of Sunni against Shia, Christians against Sunni and Shia, and everybody against everybody. There's an old imperialist strategy. When I went to school, this was a little bit of time ago, we had to learn the book, we had to read the books of Julius Caesar, one of the war monsters of the Roman Empire. And he wrote one book about the wars and the war strategy of the Roman Empire, and it was called Divide et Impera, divide and rule. So this is exactly the same strategy, the same method they're using through these covert operations. Fortunately, due to the strength and the wisdom of the Lebanese resistance and the unity of the Lebanese people, they could not achieve the first goal to trigger a civil war. But when the Americans have plan A in their pocket, they already prepare for plan B if plan A does not go. Plan B you could see at Lebanon airport when American cargo planes were touching down. Because the American cargo planes with supplies, interesting enough, when the Zionists attacked Lebanon, the same imperialists that were sending the cargo planes organized an embargo against Lebanon. They didn't assist the Lebanese people. They didn't stop the genocide against the Lebanese people. And now, under the cover of the so-called campaign against international terrorism, they're sending these planes here. But the planes are like the strategy to enter this country from the back door. First, there are planes with ammunition and supplies. After the planes, there will come nice, sweet proposals of incorporating Lebanon into the international war of terror, against so-called terror. The third step will be to send military advisors, start joint operations, etc., etc. So the cargo planes were the first step towards intervention. The first step towards intervention, and never forget, but I'm convinced you're aware, if they think about the campaign against terror, and if they talk about Fatah Islam, they really not mean Fatah Islam. Their prime target is the Lebanese resistance, and this is the top agenda. What they didn't achieve through the Zionist tanks that were beaten, so that the Zionist army had cowardly to retreat, they now want to achieve through the back door. And therefore, this is also another important aspect to have this conference here in Lebanon, because it will show to the world and to every people who are also resisting that, first of all, you have a united people here in Lebanon. Secondly, you have a heroic resistance that should be appreciated and supported worldwide. And thirdly, that if people are united nationally, and if the resistance struggle is united internationally with the same vision, our enemy, imperialism and Zionism, has no chance. We shall overcome. Shukran.